tnoozLIVE at GBTA, presented by BCD Travel. Thanks very much for making the time to join us live from the BCD booth at the GBTA convention in San Diego. We're going to kick off with a session around research, and I've got a couple of great guests to kick us off today. I've got Al Merschen on the far left, who's Managing Director for MMGY Global, a big research house. They've just done some research into the leisure traveler that we're going to be talking about shortly. And I'm also here with Miriam Moscovici, who's Director of Emerging Technology for BCD Travel. It's a wide-ranging brief, and part of her role as the Director of Emerging Technology is also research. So as I said, we're going to be talking lots and lots of research here. So if I can just sort of kick off talking to Al, I mean, the portrait of the American traveler is your flagship research product. It's been around for a number of years, 18 years, I believe.
Exactly.
You've just produced the 2018 report, and while it is mainly focused on the US leisure traveler, there are some interesting insights that you can pull out of that to apply to a corporate travel context. So maybe just share what you found from the latest research that you've done.
Sure, just a couple of highlights there. Where travel is still on the increase, it's probably not as dramatic as it was in the last couple of years, but still certainly on an upswing. We're seeing some breakouts. The millennial family traveler is probably the fastest growing traveler. And when you add the extra adjective of affluent millennial family travelers, you see a strong outbound traveler, both domestic and international, who has now said, tourism isn't a privilege, it's a right. And this is a requirement of what we're going to be doing. So it becomes a priority sometimes over home buying to go out and see the world and share that with their children. So
did you say millennial families? So millennials are old enough to have families now.
Well, you know, now millennials are up to 37 years old.
Okay.
So it's 25 to 37, it's not that old stereotype of the backpacker who's going out. These people on an average household are spending $7,000, $8,000 on their trips. So all of a sudden, this is a viable market for travelers. The little correlation that we were talking about is also some of the research is talking about millennials wanting to travel for business now more than the boomers or the Gen Xers. And so we start to see this, personally love the term, bleisure action starting to happen and one impacting the other. So it's an exciting time for that intersection between the two disciplines.
Okay, so Miriam, what sort of research is BCD Travel doing?
We've got a lot of research going on right now. I will say, one that I think resonates a little bit with what you're talking about, with the consumer travel, is there's a huge focus right now in business travel around wellness and the happiness of the traveler. So we're not the only ones doing research on it. I think that there's lots of players out there starting to look into it, but you know, the idea that we're not just booking business travel for robots, we're booking them for human beings, right? So the ability for us to take a look at what keeps a traveler healthy, what keeps a traveler happy, what keeps a traveler productive, and that goes way beyond some of the traditional TMC or travel management company skills, right, is to also take a very close look at wellness. So one of the things that we are looking at and doing research on now is what are those components of wellness? And it's not necessarily just about, and you can actually see in the conference schedule here, right? The schedule, as I look at it, right, it's heavily weighted to the human aspect of the humans that we're helping travel, whether it's their health or whether it's social issues, or it's, you know, women traveling, or LGBTQ, or LGBTQ. Or families, or special needs. So there's a lot of focus on that. So we're starting to do some research on wellness, what contributes to it, and hopefully, if we do it right, we will have the ability for us to measure the happiness level of a traveler and help our clients figure out what they can adjust in their travel program or adjust in the solutions that they provide their travelers to create a net healthier, happier, more well traveler. So that's one thing I think that we might have in common. Are you looking at that as well?
And I think you bring up a great point when we talk about wellness, which is across the board, and certainly I went to some of the sessions yesterday and it was all about wellness in travel and trying to find that balance. Right. And I think initially people think of wellness as the physical aspect of drinking more water or getting more but it's the psychological aspect of it too. And from what we know, we've always seen at least 20% of people have included some sort of leisure with their business trip. At least that's what they've admitted to. So now we see some companies even saying, wait a minute, maybe it would be better if the family came with them. Maybe somebody can accompany them on a personal trip, and that's okay. They could be more effective and more efficient. In the same way you see people sometimes working at home more than going into an office, it just opens up that whole more holistic view of wellness for employees, be it in travel.
And Miriam, is that the sort of thing that you're trying to find a way of quantifying so that it's presentable to your clients as almost not as a commercial product, almost like a happiness rating, for want of something more
I think
corporate.
that the industry could benefit from having more of a standard approach to how we do measure happiness and wellness, and I think in our future we are likely to see something like a happiness quotient, right? That we can help our clients kind of plug in the right elements to and help them understand which one of their travelers are at risk because they're run down or they're experiencing a lot of friction, right? And I think that in today's day and age where recruiting and keeping and retaining the talent that you hire into your company, if you don't create a happy, well, and joyful business traveler, they're going to go to your competitor. And so I think that that's, for us, it's really important to address is what is that? And I think at the end of the day, to take all mystery out of it, it is going to be math. It's going to be mathematics, right? It's going to be us taking a look at what components of an experience contribute to wellness and health and sanity and feeling happy, and then beginning to weight them and determine what is the magical formula that we can help people understand what the wellness of their collective body of business travelers, but also the individual traveler. Because I suspect that when we can start looking at travelers individually and what their current status is in terms of their how worn down they are, how worn out they are, or how happy or healthy they might be, I suspect that corporations are going to want to not just adjust travel policy to higher revenue generating travelers, but also potentially dynamically adjust policy to address travelers who are run down, right? I always use the example of, I fly and coach, I work for a TMC. But man, on the 10th straight week of traveling, it sure would be nice if somebody would throw me a bone and put me in a really nice 5-star hotel or give me an upper class seat. I don't qualify for first class, I don't qualify for a 5-star hotel, but if you know how run down I am, it certainly would be nice for us to be able to help our clients do it and for corporations to be able to adjust policy based on a wellness score, for example.
So do millennials have an expectation that their employee is going to be more in tune with their wellness quotient than previous generations?
With unemployment under 4%, but when you dig deeper, college-educated unemployment is less than 2%.
Oof.
So trying to retain people is, for a lot of companies, goal number one. And I think you touched on another big point. It's not just the retention of the person or how worn down they are, it's what's their productivity factor. If you can't open your laptop on the economy seat, you're not going to work. And so sometimes that lounge pass, that upgrade, will make you 10 times more productive, which gets you a little more happier, which gives you a little more time to work out when you get to the hotel, and that all comes back. I think when it comes to the millennials, two things. The millennials on travel, especially the international travel, want to do more travel. A couple of years ago we did a study and 60% of millennials that said they'd like to do more travel because it's almost a badge of courage, of achievement, if you will, where people are like, well, what do you do? Well, I travel a lot. And that's the first thing they would say before they say they sell semiconductors.
Right.
That becomes almost what distinguishes them. And if they're treated well through their travel, their productivity's up, their retention up, everything else is important. And that mix of, oh, I brought my husband, wife, partner to this trip, makes a difference to them. And when you think about it, a lot of times somebody's leaving somebody behind, that person feels slighted. If they can become part of that, they understand the need to travel and might even create more interest in it.
So we've got the research from MMGY and BCD that is sort of saying that wellness is an important factor of how corporations should treat their travelers. Have corporations got the memo yet? Are they now sort of buying into the idea that there is research out there that shows that if you look after the health and well-being of your travelers on the road, that they are more productive, happier, more likely to stay with the company? I'm just wondering at the sort of like the C-level within corporations, whether there's been a shift, or are they still flogging them to within an inch of their lives?
Well, the COOs probably get it. I don't know if the CFOs are there yet, but I think, I mean, even you see here at GBTA, or you go to the hotels and you see what the hotels are doing to make sure that the people who stay at those hotels have that opportunity to be healthy. If it's yoga on TV or instructions in the gym or whatever it happens to be, they start to see it, which is also, I think, signed to the corporate, but you know more about the corporate folks.
I mean, I'll tell you two pieces of evidence, right? I think one is you can see what's going on here at the conference. If you look at the agenda at the conference, there is a huge focus, again, on the human being. We're putting in plane seats and putting in beds. And to me, that's different than years prior. I think the other thing I'm noticing is that we do have HR departments beginning to show up at the table to make decisions for the corporate travel program. And I don't know that that has been the case in years prior, but we are seeing them come to the table more and more. They are seeing corporate travel, or the business travel program, as a strategic part of their company's ability to meet their corporate goals. Getting their travelers to go locations, take care of customers, sell business, do good work. To them, that is a strategic piece, and keeping those travelers happy and healthy and on the road and productive to them is really important. So, just those two pieces of evidence to me show that corporations are definitely starting to look at that. And when you look specifically at high growth companies that are hiring at a brisk pace right now, really looking for that talent, that's even more important to them because they know that when a candidate is looking at being employed with your company, they've got a choice between your company or a competitor who's got a better travel policy or a more comfortable travel program or a company that just pays more attention to their wellness and their health and their happiness. They're going to choose that other company instead of yours.
Okay, well that's a really good start to Tnooz Live at GBTA, presented by BCD. Not a mention of APIs or NDCs or leakage or compliance or anything. We're just talking about the wellness of the traveler. So that's a really good start. So Miriam Moscovici from BCD Travel, Merschen from MMGY Global, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, as you know, with the Tnooz Live at product, we've got a whole string of interviews lined up for this afternoon. We'll be back shortly. Thanks for listening. Bye.